Hi, my name is Jacob Freers and I'm an AMGA Apprentice Rock Guide, and in today's video we're going to go over the process of rappelling. Specifically in this video we're going to go over when and why you would rappel, the actual steps of rappelling, and then we'll finish up with what a stacked rappel is for when you're rappelling off a multi-pitch. The first thing we're going to go over is when and why to rappel. The first would be rappelling off of a multi-pitch. The second would be if you've gotten to the top of your climb and maybe your anchor is not suitable for being lowered off of. Maybe the rings are extremely rusted or extremely sharp and it would be safer to rappel. One of the last main reasons would be for approaching a crag. Sometimes you'll hike in from the top and need to rappel a route to get down to the base of the climb. One last thing I want to say about rappelling is that when single pitch climbing, if possible, you want to be lowered by your belayer. If you look at the how to clean anchors video on the same channel, we'll go over how and why we choose to do that. So now we're going to go over the actual steps of rappelling. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get up to my anchor and I'm going to clip in and ask my belayer to take me. That way I can be relaxed and hands-free as I'm building my personal tether. What I'm going to do now is take out my double link sling and build that personal tether. If you don't know how to build a personal tether, we have another video on our channel I suggest watching. That's all about building personal tethers that also extend your belay device, which is something that we want to do. So make sure to watch that video if you want some more information on that. Here I'm doing a basket hitch with an overhand in order to accomplish that. So I'm going to take that and clip it into one of my master points. And now that I've checked that I've actually gone through both my hard points and I'm locked and I'm clipped into a master point, I'm going to tell my belayer that they can give me slack and I will weight this new anchor system. So now that I've weighted this and I put my new weight on the anchor with my personal tether, I can go ahead and call down for off belay. Here is where you want to be very careful with what words you use. You only want to be able to call off belay if you're ready for your belayer to walk away. This is kind of the phrase I like to use to help people remember: off belay, walk away. So if you're just being lowered off of an anchor, you would not want to say that. You just need to be asking for slack. If you are rappelling and you are ready for your belayer to walk away, then you can call off belay. So since I'm rappelling, I've called off belay, and now I can pull up a little bit extra slack, and I want to attach some slack to my harness. Whether that's on a carabiner or directly to your harness is not super critical because I'm not worried about this getting weighted. This is just for if I drop my end of the rope while I'm untying. So now that I've tied this off to my harness, I can go ahead and untie my figure eights. And thread it through my anchor. So you're normally almost always going to be threading that through the lowest point on your anchor, so either the chains or the big rings at the end. As soon as I pull this through, I'm going to stop and tie a stopper knot. So a fisherman's, a stopper, a barrel knot, it's known by a bunch of different things. As long as it is a stopper knot that is going to stop you from rappelling off the ends of your rope, that is what you're going to want to tie. With at least enough tail, about 6 inches, maybe a little bit more. So I've tied this stopper knot, so I don't need to worry about dropping my end of the rope. So I can unattach this from my harness, unattach this from my anchor, and go ahead and pull my rope through to the middle mark. So that's either going to be a black line painted on your rope, or your rope will change color halfway through if it's a bi pattern. So you want to make sure you find that middle mark and put it in your anchor. You want to make sure it's in between that. That way you know you have an equal strand of rope on each side. So now that we've got our rope threaded, we can actually get ready to set up our rappel device. And so I will take my third hand with my friction hitch and a locking carabiner and set it up on my belay loop. And then I will set up my ATC on the shelf of my personal tether. Again, we go over the shelf and how to attach your ATC in that video about personal tether extensions. So now that I've got this set up, what I like to do is take my friction hitch first and just tie an auto block And so that's either 2 or 3 or 4 wraps around your 2 strands, depending on how much tether you have in your auto block. I'm going to want to test this and make sure it works before I go, and then lock up that locker so it's set up. Now I'm going to pull some extra slack through that, so I have slack between my auto block and my anchor, and this will allow me to easily thread my ATC. That's why I like to do the auto block first. That way I'm not trying to hold up 60 meters of rope while I'm loading my ATC. And the weight is on my auto block here. So I will then make sure I load my ATC properly, putting a loop through both slots in my ATC, and then clipping both of those loops and locking my ATC. So the way you would check this to make sure it's loaded correctly is to make sure that the brake strand is coming out of the brake end and your load strand is going back up to your anchor, and that you have actually clipped both loops here. That's the big thing you want to check for. So now I've got my Repel set up, and now I need to get ready to switch onto my new system. And so now that I've attached everything, I can double check it, make sure all my lockers are locked, make sure I've clipped this correctly, and now I can start to pull up on my ATC and actually weight this new system before I take apart my old anchor. That way I'm almost doing a triple check to make sure that the new system is loaded and set correctly before I get rid of my old one. So now that you've set your new system, you can take your old anchor, clean it off, and then rappel down to the base. So the next thing I want to go over is stacked rappelling. You would most likely be doing stacked rappelling if you were coming off of a multi-pitch with either your partner or maybe 2 other partners. The reason you do this is so you can check each other's rappel devices before you actually rappel. That way you're not really just depending on your own set of eyes, you have someone else looking over it and potentially catching an error that you've made along the way. I stacked rappel almost every time I rappel with another person because there's not really a good reason not to. I think it actually makes you move faster, and it is significantly safer than just loading it by yourself. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you'll see that we've already set up and we're at the point where our rope is threaded, our personal tethers are attached, all of our devices are ready to go. And so as the first rappeller, I'm going to grab those 2 strands and tie that auto block hitch just like previously in order to take the weight off of the rope while I'm loading it. I'm going to pull that through, make sure it works, and then whoever's rappelling first is going to go ahead and put on their ATC right above that auto block. Clip it and lock it. Now, whoever's the second rappeller is going to be able to set up their ATC above mine. So you can go ahead and do that. And you're going to want whoever's rappelling second to have their ATC closest to your bolt anchor. That way, once I leave, they're still attached and not in my way. And so now the big benefit of this is we can pull these tight with our extensions and double check each other. So we can check that we're actually locked and clipped through both strands. And that way, whenever I get off rappel, my second rappeller just needs to set up their third hand and then get going. It's very quick. I think it adds another layer of safety that's really important. And like I said, I don't really see a reason why not to do it. So now what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and warn my second person that, hey, like you might get yanked around just a bit here at the beginning while the rope is going down. So I'm going to have them kind of walk in towards this rope being in a straight line. And then just as like last time, I'm going to make sure everything's set up. I've done my partner check. I can pull up and take off my tether and then load that ATC and lower down out of my system. And so I can get all the way down to my next anchor, and whether I'm going to the ground or another anchor station, I can get down, do what I need to do, and then once I have taken all my stuff off of my setup, I'm going to yell up, Carlin, I'm off rappel. So now my second rappeller would be able to put on their third hand, Set up that auto block, make sure it's done correctly, and then run another check on their system. Make sure that it's locked, make sure nothing wiggled loose while they're going, and then they would be able to pull up and clean the anchor off. Make sure you've got that brake hand on there, and that's also why we've got the third hand, just in case. And then after that second repeller is cleaned off that anchor, they're good to now rappel and meet me down at the next station. All right, two big things to remember is going to be one, always close your system, and then two is going to be having some sort of backup on your rappel. So whether that's a friction hitch or a fireman's belay, just having some sort of backup. All right, and remember, all these techniques are going to take a lot of practice and a lot of time to get good at. So make sure you're being patient with yourself and your partner while you're learning these new skills.